But today's topic will be totally different. It's more on the innovation part of all the business and how blockchain can help your business to conduct business more effectively. Well, blockchain actually is one of the top tech trends according to Gartner. Well, besides AI, automation, all this fascinating technology, we are seeing Gartner are actually naming blockchain as a more practical way to incorporate it into the business. Well, first of all, I would like to start a first poll of today. Well, do you know the ranking of blockchain in the LinkedIn's most in-demand hard skill for 2020? Hard skill means the technology skill is most demanded by all the employee. Well, let's wait for a while, see how many people ranked. Let's wait for a few more seconds. Okay, well, surprisingly, most of you guys are actually ranked number 3. It's ranking number 3. Well, but in fact, according to the LinkedIn latest survey, blockchain, in fact, is one of the technology skill most demand for a lot of employees, because we are seeing a lot of business are starting to adopt blockchain because of this beauty of because of the technology beauty. Well, and according to a lot of research, for example, in IDC, we are seeing that blockchain is going to have a 5-year compound annual growth from 2018 to 2023 around 60%. And a lot global blockchain spending is going to be led by the banking industry, which will account for roughly 30% of the worldwide total. And in a lot of the case, we are seeing a lot of discrete manufacturing, such as car manufacturer, steel manufacturing. All this process manufacturer is going to be increasing the use of blockchain in their business process. Moreover, we are seeing utility, retail, service-based company are also start to adopt blockchain, because as you can see, most of this business are related to the transactional-based business, and blockchain can really solve a lot of transactional issue in the old technology. Well, since a lot of audience are from different background, I would like to give some brief introduction. What is really a blockchain? Some of you guys may already have a blockchain deployed in your business, but some of you guys are just heard about it, but don't really know about this. Well, speaking about the background, the interesting thing about the blockchain is it all started back in around 12 to 13 years ago, where there's a person, okay, why I so-called it is a person, is someone post an article with a very sophisticated and simple algorithm in one of the Usenet group. At that time, there's no blog is not that common yet. And this article actually presented a mathematical algorithm, very robust mathematical algorithm that potentially changed the world how to deal with transaction. And the interesting thing is up till now, still no one knows who really invented the blockchain. Okay, and back in like around 11 years ago, we are seeing blockchain 1.0. That Bitcoin starting to ramp up in a lot of the website, and starting to build an ecosystem of cryptocurrency. As you see, during the past 10 years, Bitcoin itself actually grew a lot. And during the last 1 or 2 or 3 years, we are seeing an enhanced version of Bitcoin, such as Ethereum, that integrated with smart contract, which is a programming interface which allow any transaction created value can interact with application developer to trigger action, trigger programmable action immediately. And as you can see, in the next few years, we are going to see a lot of industry is going to employ blockchain over the internet and to create their digital economy. It's not just industry, even the government. We are seeing a lot of like digital currency, digital-based transaction. Their underlying technology are starting to build based on blockchain. Well, what really is a blockchain? Blockchain, well, if we need to talk about it, is a very like a sophisticated mathematical algorithm that if you do not have a lot of math background, you will not easily understand it. But in summary, the characteristic of blockchain is a decentralized technology. That means no one really owns the block. I mean, no participant in the block really own the block. They all own it, and they all do the validation during a transaction, which build up a corruption-proof mechanism built into the system. And very important is the ledger. All the transaction record, the ledger, is being distributed to all the participants in the block, and it will avoid a lot of manipulation of the record, because those records and transactions are no longer stored centrally in one place. And very important, because all the transactions are keep adding into the chain, that will increase the traceability. And because of this, the feature of the overall of the entire blockchain will create a distributed ledger, which including a very strong privacy and also programmable interface to allow once the transaction is recorded, any follow-up application and execution of action can be done easily. And very important, because it is a ledger system that being distributed across all the participants. Any action and transaction in the system are being consented by all the participants to ensure to ensure the decisions are being made correctly. Well, basically, how it really works. When you talk about a blockchain, is kind of like a magic. It's really simple, that it just consists of three main information. Very important, because blockchain itself is a ledger. It's just like a book in the accounting. If you have financial background, you know the general ledger or this transaction. It carry a lot of information about the transaction itself, and all the participants, the identity being involved. And very important, we are always when we are talking about blockchain, we are always seeing a lot of long funny code at the back end. Is called the hash code. The hash code itself is carrying the digital signature of the data record itself to ensure the privacy of the, even if it is a shared ledger, but the actual data is not being shared across the blockchain, but only the digital signature of that piece of data is being shared across the block. So the methodology is quite simple. Is whenever who requests a transaction, whether update something, send some money to others, or when you're trying to approve something, that transaction is being broadcast into the participant blockchain system. That may involve 10 computers, 20 computers, 100 computers, it doesn't really matter. And all this transaction will be broadcast to all the participants. And all the participants will help to do the validation of this transaction. And once the validation is completed, all this information is verified, and then the transaction is being committed and being passed into the blockchain being passed into the chain itself. The chain will have this updated record into the chain, and this chain is being distributed by all the participants in the network, and the overall transaction is complete. So as you can see now, because it is a decentralized hash board, and all the participants agree such transaction, and then being put in the chain, it actually avoided a lot of tampering. Not just avoid a lot of tampering, it's really avoid all tampering. Anyone trying to like manipulate an old record, for example, like I pay you $10 today, but like the next day I say that I didn't pay you that $10, and then I try to go back into a system and try to change the backend system. The blockchain will immediately find out that record is being tampered, because the hash code or even the information about the transaction, about the timing and timestamp are being incorrect. Very importantly, all the identity involved participant into the block and submitting transaction are based on digital signature. So they don't really need to pass their actual identity, but they only pass their digital signature into the system to ensure their identity. So the amazing thing about the blockchain is it creates a very robust, secure system, but yet you can still remain anonymously. And very important, because everything is being stored in the chain, everything is traceable. When I talk about traceable, it's all the way traceable to the start of the block 0, or even block 1 or block 0. That any information is going to be traceable. Because the nature of the blockchain, when the transaction is being submitted into the network of computer participated in the block, all the data is being synchronized. So that ledger, or simply say that financial book, will never lose. If any network of computer, any log is being downed, you can still find the transaction in the other level of computer. Well, as I say, like cryptocurrency actually use a lot of really based on the blockchain technology. We can see two of the very important cryptocurrencies, the Bitcoin and Ethereum. Why their value is so high is because the technology behind the blockchain itself really can help business, or even we can help the economy to create value. A lot of the like current paper money are based on trust. The value are really based on trust, and because of the blockchain technology can create trust in the economy. That's why cryptocurrency is very popular and very important, because there's an underlying trust between all the participants in the block. In the supply chain scenario, we are also seeing a lot of, like, for example, medical supply, food supply, discrete manufacturing, car manufacturing. There are a lot of the time they are starting to incorporate a supply chain into their system. And because of the last 2 years advanced development, we are also seeing a more and more smart contract, which is the programming interface that interacted with the blockchain to allow a lot of actual action once a transaction is completed, can be automated easily. Well, I spoke about a lot of the technical thing. Blockchain is also one of the technologies trying to help organization and company to smoother in digital transformation. But I want to check with all the participants and who actually lead the digital transformation at your company. Is it your CEO, your CIO, or your CTO? But more importantly, I have a option for you to choose. Is it COVID-19? Let's wait for people to vote. We are getting more. I'm seeking the bar, I'm jumping around. clearly a lot of people are talking about like figure about COVID-19. Okay, we are seeing almost half of the participants are talking about agree with the COVID-19 are really leading the digital transformation. Well, I want to talk about some of the impact of the blockchain during the coronavirus outbreak. As you can see, during this pandemic, a lot of technology actually pump up. Some of them already exist for a long time, and the use case just pop up, such as like the webinar itself, like the video conferencing we are doing right now, and because we are also an ICT company, we are seeing massive growth about the remote access, and also the increase the use of data center, virtual desktop integration. All this existing technology, like a lot of people are using it before, but we are seeing a surge in all those technology. But one of the funny things is a lot of the people are really not aware. We are always seeing a surge of blockchain technology behind the scene, and this type of search a lot of the time is really transparent to the end user. Well, I just talked about using China as an example, but even in Germany, in different countries, we are seeing a lot of new blockchain projects are put in place, and all these projects are rapidly implemented. Later on, I'll talk about why they can implement such a project so fast. Well, let's give some of the example. In China, one of the blockchain application against pandemic is about the pandemic prevention screening in China. That one of the university, the Shandong University, which is the first use case in blockchain about the pandemic, we roll out in very early February. That the overall development is only took 2 days to develop a system that can real-time, using a real-time online connection of student, faculty member, the data on the health, out-of-home condition, monitoring, and all kind of control. And all this information can pass by different level of authority to ensure data accuracy and integrity. It's just managing the school. But however, well, this looks like a very simple system. But in a traditional system, you just use a database doing some sort of implementation of a transaction. But however, the record can be easily tampered. But by using blockchain to develop such type of system, because we are talking about pandemic, the accuracy of the data is very important. Once a student submit a health record or their condition, they need to ensure this is being monitored, controlled, and very important is keep track and cannot be tampered. So blockchain, the beauty about blockchain is on this case is really a tamper-proof system. Once a transaction is being submitted by the student about their health status, and it will record in the change forever. Well, and another use case is about it's also in early February. One of the company working with the government official that developed a pandemic monitoring system for all the province and city or even town level hospital to report the status about the patient. Okay, and then this system will create a health code to help to classify each of the person in different color, and then pass to all the provinces, all the city level government official to ensure that person be a health condition. And all this we are talking about like 1.4 billion of people in China. Like developers of the system using a traditional way, a traditional database. It's not just you took a very long time and a very important, you take a lot of processing power, and if you are using a centralized database to try to do all this thing, you took you weeks or even months try to implement that. But again, we can see that this system only like roll out in just a few days. Well, there are more use cases in China. For example, donation tracking, material tracking. They are all these systems have developed so fast in China. It's all because all their underlying technology is built based on blockchain. As I mentioned before, blockchain is very good in keep track of transaction. So anything related to transaction is a very good use case for blockchain. One of the interesting use cases is also the integration about the medical and insurance claim process. Blockchain already applied into insurance company for around 1 or 2 years already. We are seeing quite a number of like simple insurance, a new type of product from the insurance company pop up. This speed up of settlement and new product is all based on blockchain, because a lot of the time in the insurance process, especially in the medical insurance process, the claim process involved in a lot of documentation, a lot of transaction, and a lot of validation. And by nature, the blockchain algorithm can easily help medical insurance company to ease up their effort in no matter when they when the user buy the insurance or even during the claim process. Well, in summary, the blockchain actually can enhance the whole supply chain level protocol. I want to give you some of the pain point what the business are actually having right now. A lot of the time, a lot of the company, even my own company and a lot of company I worked before, there is always a traceability issue. A lot of CEO, management, boss keeps asking for report, but a lot of companies have so many systems, and all this transaction a lot of time is decoupled between each different system and causing a traceability issue. But however, blockchain, the auditability, if you put all the transaction into the blockchain, you can actually analyze the change to provide a traceability and auditability. Compliance. In order to ensure compliance by the traditional implementation of application, a lot of the time you need to put in a lot of security control. For example, access control, who can update this record, who cannot update this record. And a lot of the time, even you put in all this compliance control, a database developer who has the ultimate access as a super user into the bank system can still tamper the record. But by putting a transaction in place into every database record and the flow of the data, it creates an immutability to the data, because timestamp is being posted in all the transaction record. Flexibility. A lot of the time when you are doing a lot of programming, a lot of tasks or programming interface, when a transaction is being complete, you have a lot of follow-up action. You need to manually implement a lot of execution into a decentralized into different system. But however, the smart contract can classify each type of transaction, and then their follow action by putting the application code, the application execution into the blockchain itself. So it really just help the automation about all the transaction and the follow-up action on those transactions. And one of the pain point for the traditional business is a lot of the time there's a lack of trust. Each department or in the business, each department or each business owner will have their own implementation of application, their own process and their own tasks. A lot of the time, they cannot really communicate with each other and build a trust. And because of the blockchain, the traceability and the immutability of the blockchain, that actually enable all the P2P interaction to ensure all the stakeholders are focusing their transaction and their analysis into the blockchain, and all this interaction can help different stakeholders to increase their efficiency and also their performance. Well, Overall, as you can see, blockchain, there are 4 different key benefits that can help, blockchain can help company. Very important is the transparency, but also is the transparency because every transaction is being recorded in the block and is tamper-proof, and all the participants in the block is going to contribute the validation. The second part is about security. The blockchain itself is not really storing the information. Well, a lot of people are talking about blockchain is a digital database, but I would more like to say it is really a distributed ledger rather than a database. The security itself is the blockchain is really putting the record of all the transaction, and all the data itself is putting about or is putting the the digital signature about the data record itself into the blockchain. So a lot of the time, even when a blockchain is being hacked, okay, there no system is really tamper-proof. But a lot of the time, when the blockchain is really hacked, a lot of the time people will just see a bunch of transaction, but they don't know what transaction are being stored in it until you are able to decrypt the hash code being stored into the system. Very important. Blockchain is very efficient, and you can see it's a distributed computing network. So every transaction is being stored, being submitted into the blockchain. All the computing resources in all the participants will help to do the validation. And very important, the efficiency is not just submit a transaction and record into the database. One of the efficiency that blockchain built up is the auditability, because it is a tamper-proof system that with inbuilt audit inbuilt audit trace algorithm inside. So a lot of the time, when a transaction is put into the blockchain, it cannot be changed, it cannot be tampered. So it actually is the effort about the auditor to ensure the consistency about all this record. And very important, because the blockchain, the algorithm of the blockchain is all about building trust. So once every participant in that system, if they are rely on the blockchain to do their transaction, it can easily build up trust. And a lot of the time, when the trust is built up, the economic value of the chain will really show up. As you can see in the cryptocurrency world, the Ethereum and also the Bitcoin is because everyone, when people are gaining trust in that system, the Bitcoin itself being created, the cryptocurrency itself, the value will be created. Well, I want to talk about some of the more local or Asia use case. One of the use case we are seeing recently in the past around 2 years, we are seeing a lot of customers are deploying the new loyalty program. They're revamping their loyalty program, and a lot of the time, why they are revamping this loyalty program is because they are start to implement new technology such as blockchain into their loyalty program. Well, one of the example is the Asia Mile. In fact, even Singapore Airline also launched similar program. As a lot of people already know, CITIC Pacific group for so many years. But we went using the Spark, using the blockchain technology in May 2018. And it provides, Asia Mile provide all the partners with a single data source to manage all their account activity. Blockchain will share their real time, will have a real-time ability to manage their reward. And the whole system is based on a blockchain technology. Well, so why we are seeing a lot of frequent flyer program, a lot of loyalty program, especially a lot of program with loyalty points, start moving into blockchain technology. There we can see a lot of different compared with the traditional loyalty program and the new blockchain-based loyalty program. You're seeing that the ownership itself is actually owned by the issuing platform, okay, in the traditional way. But in the new way, the blockchain actually is owned by all the participants. And very important, a lot of the time to handling the expiration of point is very difficult. But in blockchain, the points can, in theory, you cannot the transaction or the point earns will not be expired. But actually, company can put in a condition on it. And very important, open transparency and interoperability, because it's built on common technology that everyone can read this, can participate in the blockchain. And very important, if the blockchain itself, the loyalty program creating value, it can easily convert into other cryptocurrency, which really create the real cash value. And one of the things when we are interviewing with some of the customers is a lot of the time, well, this may change in the future. In the financial accounting, a loyalty, a lot of the time is a liability and a deferred revenue marked in the book. But however, in the new blockchain, in the blockchain model, because the liability is being shared across the merchant, so a lot of the unused local loyalty point from a financial point of view is not really recorded in the balance sheet, which actually is some of the financial effort of the especially large company managing points. Transparency, ownership, security. I'm going to skip this one. There's a lot of benefit in loyalty program convert into a blockchain-based system. Well, I've talked about a lot of the example in China, also locally, and about the background about how blockchain really works. And I want to share some of the experience ourselves, and even some of the experience when we interview with some of our clients, how they really are managing blockchain and quickly develop blockchain in their digital life cycle. Well, a lot of the time people are thinking about blockchain is a very difficult technology, but in theory, in these 2 years, we are seeing a lot of standardization in blockchain already. A lot of the technology itself is really ready to use technology. Well, one of the scenario about the enterprise can put their workflow, not really revamping their whole workflow, but really put their own existing workflow into the blockchain. Okay, for example, there's a transaction A, transaction B, transaction C are being done in your enterprise resource, in your ERP or in your even your office automation, your leave application form, all this transaction. You can actually, once the transaction is being submitted, you can easily put those transactions, leveraging a industrial standard blockchain or just set up a simple private chain in your own company, and then using the blockchain API platform, and then record those information to the change. Why we need to do this extra step is because once we have a complete picture of the blockchain, then a customer life cycle or your data life cycle can easily analyze it. As you may aware, you can see like in all the enterprise, you can easily find there are a couple of some even larger enterprise who have a couple of CRM systems. Some even have not just one ERP, 10 ERP, e-commerce, customer service, finance system. They may have a lot of record, and a lot of the time, the interaction between this system are not that easy. Maybe you will find IT, or if I have a ERP system, once I have some product are being manufactured, I want to put into the e-commerce system. A lot of the time, all this transaction itself, whether I really put those records into the e-commerce or whether I really not put it in, it's not clear. Especially when you have so many systems in your company. So I would strongly suggest that some of the enterprise can, when they try to build a blockchain, they can more or less build a more generic purpose blockchain API platform that can couple whatever transaction you want to store in the blockchain. So to go back to the example about the China development into rapid development during the pandemic about blockchain, because a lot of this transaction is not really required to build a new blockchain. It's just a common blockchain in the internet, or you can build a private blockchain in your own enterprise. And then whenever you have a new use case come up, you can quickly, new use case or new system with transaction, you can quickly incorporate those transactions into the blockchain. And once your blockchain grows, you can have a complete picture about your customer lifecycle to analyze whether the customer have any help ticket about a service, when the customer really buy the service, whether they have any complaint of the service, whether they have access our e-commerce system, whether they buy the product from this manufacturer or that manufacturer. A lot of this tracing can be really done on tracing the blockchain itself, really without a lot of complicated integration with all the traditional system. So that this is just a use case about the customer lifecycle analytics. Put in on the other hand, for example, in the HR system, you can actually a staff lifecycle analytics. If you have a couple of HR systems, some managing leave, some managing attendance, some managing some managing the payroll, you can actually put into a staff. You can build up easily using the same generic purpose blockchain API platform. You can also build up a staff management system or staff tracing system. And one of the very interesting use cases in utility, we are seeing that some of the utility companies start to put their financial system into blockchain to keep track of AR, the account receivable. Because a lot of the time, the account receivable may be messy, especially when you are keep tracking, like in utility business, you need to keep tracking like even million of users. And sometimes it can be a resource consuming and sometimes can be quite easily messy. But if you, for example, if you issue a bill and when the transaction issue a bill is being recorded in the blockchain and the payment is being recorded in the blockchain, you can easily analyze the change about the efficiency about your AR in your financial statement. So there are a lot of enterprise consideration where applying blockchain technology. One of the most difficult part, as I can say, is about system integration. A lot of the company, when they have a problem about a situation, they will go buy a new system or they will develop a system. But a lot of the time is whether those systems have the ability to integrate with a common blockchain API platform. That's very important. And how's your technical team, whether they have the capability to managing the action behind the transaction. Second thing is, whatever thing you put in the blockchain, can it create any value? Well, for example, loyalty program definitely can create value, especially from a financial point of view. The loyalty point no longer being a liability in the balance sheet. Yeah, and privacy. Okay, and if your transaction require to ensure a lot of commercial or even personal privacy, that you can really consider using blockchain to help you to ensure this record and the transaction about this record is being secure. Very important because blockchain is rely on a distributed technology. So there are also still some technology risk, because when you set up a block, you need to ensure to measure the performance about the block, especially on the network latency, because all the transactions are being distributed to all the network, compute, networking look to ensure the stability of the network. Is very important, because all these transactions is being will be may delay if the network is not stable. Also about the ROI and whether you have a monitoring policy about the decentralization and autonomy. Well, that basically finish up my presentation about the blockchain or the business world. But let me do about a bit more about the background about our company. Like CITIC Group, CITIC Telecom, CPC is one of the company under Citigroup, which we rank 137 in Fortune 500. Citigroup itself is a conglomerate, not just in IT, but we also have a very huge financial business, financial service, resource engineering, manufacturing, and also engineering, construction. Some of the infrastructure in Hong Kong is even is also built by our group company. Well, in terms of Citic Telecom CPC, we are a technology service provider. We have a very good, extensive network presence over in the entire world with different type of security and also innovative solution. Very important, around like 70% of our staff are being with qualification in different type of technical certification. We have people everywhere in the world, and especially we are very strong in Asia and also in Europe. And also we have we have a lot of data center and supporting center around the world with a lot of global attended track record, including award, and also we are ISO. We have different ISO compliance. And very important, we are a technology service provider that we are actually have a lot of strong partner at the back, and we help them. We help our partner and our customer to deploy the best solution for their needs. And that ends my presentation. And if you have any questions, feel free to send to me.